Welcome back to Wrestling Flash. In this WWE and all things wrestling video we are going to look at Roman Reigns turns face, the best and worst of Raw before WrestleMania Backlash, the Rock In AEW, and more. First let's look at the best and worst of Raw before WrestleMania Backlash. It was an interesting episode of Raw before WrestleMania Backlash. While it wasn't necessarily the strongest go-home show that you would see, it did enough to build up the hype for the premium live event this weekend. It started and ended strong, and not only has everything been set up for WrestleMania Backlash, but there could even be plans laid out for Hell in a Cell as well. So what were the ups and downs of Raw this week? Stay tuned to find out. Number 3. Best. 3 different women's feuds on Raw. It's not often that you see WWE building up non-title feuds for women. That is perhaps one of the biggest criticisms they have received despite having the strongest women's roster in all of pro wrestling. But on Raw this week, it seemed clear that there were 3 separate feuds that were built up. While the Bianca Belair-Sonya Deville feud is done, they were still put against one another in the 6-woman tag team main event. Liv Morgan vs. Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch vs. Asuka are the 2 other feuds. The only surprising aspect of this all is that none of these matches have been booked for WrestleMania Backlash. It wouldn't be surprising to see them add Lynch vs. Asuka to the card in the last minute. Morgan getting the pinfall win over Deville was a good choice and the perfect way to end Raw this week. Number 2. Worst. Mustafa Ali losing and a missed opportunity. Another surprise this week was Mustafa Ali getting pinned by The Miz, who he defeated last week. While this was a championship contenders handicap match that saw Theory and the A-lister face Ali, it seemed as though WWE made the wrong decision. Ali should have won and gotten a United States title shot. Or better yet, the company should have booked a triple threat match for the US title at WrestleMania Backlash also involving The Miz. Triple threat and fatal 4-way matches often go well, and it seems as though WWE is ignoring a major title feud over here. Number 2. Best. AJ Styles and Finn Balor's alliance. AJ Styles faced Damian Priest on Raw this week. The match stipulated that if Styles won, Priest would be banned from ringside at WrestleMania Backlash when the Phenomenal One faces Edge again. The match is almost guaranteed to be better, and the stakes are high with Priest having lost to Styles and thus the privilege of being at ringside for the Rated R Superstar this weekend. With that said, Finn Balor coming in for the save and beginning an alliance with AJ Styles seems to be the best possible way they can utilize him. Number 1. Worst. The 24/7 title drama. The 24/7 championship storyline might be the worst thing on all of WWE television right now. It hasn't been good for a while, and ever since the focus shifted from R-Truth to Dana Brooke and Reggie, it has all gone downhill. People say that even Game of Thrones Season 8 was better, and we have to agree with that assessment. When Nikki Ash defended the 24/7 title against Brooke, the question in our heads was, when did Nikki even win the title? As it turns out, it happened in a forgettable backstage segment. This week, Dana Brooke won it back quickly and Reggie tried pinning her, forcing Brooke to go to the commentary table and announce publicly that she wanted a divorce. It felt like an overall waste of time, and the 24/7 title picture should be shifted back to revolving around R-Truth, the funniest superstar in WWE. Number 1. Best. The opening segment on Raw between Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre. Roman Reigns opened the show on Raw this week, and it was to build up the 6-man tag team match for WrestleMania Backlash. RK-Bro appeared out of nowhere to take out the Usos, ambushing the undisputed WWE Universal Champion in the process. It was a great moment that allowed Reigns to show some vulnerability, something that we have seen bits and pieces of during his tenure as the Tribal Chief. It even led to a face-to-face confrontation against Drew McIntyre, which was arguably the highlight of the night. Reigns' facial expressions alone and the feeling of being cornered seemed to legitimize McIntyre as a challenger. This should be an incredible rivalry. Roman Reigns turns face. Undisputed WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns could be turning face if the hints on the latest episode of Monday Night Raw are anything to go by. The Tribal Chief kicked off Raw this week alongside the Usos. During his entrance, a large portion of the audience present in the arena was cheering for him. It is common for WWE to ignore these chants and sometimes even plug in fake boos for stars who need to be portrayed as heels on screen. However, things were different here as the announcers acknowledged on air that Roman Reigns was getting a mixed reaction from the fans in attendance, with Vince McMahon personally guiding the announcers on what to say and what not to. This could be a possible hint towards a babyface turn for the Tribal Chief. Wrestling News previously reported that WWE's eventual plan for Reigns is to turn him back into a babyface down the line. In regards to Reigns, WrestlingNews.co was told that the idea for his return was to give him an edge, with the idea being that fans would cheer him since he's a heel and eventually he would turn into a babyface. After years and years of being pushed as a babyface by WWE, Reigns finally turned heel in 2020. The decision has led him to become one of the best bad guys in recent history. Over the last few weeks, Roman Reigns has been breaking his heel character on multiple occasions during live events and has also delivered babyface promos, thanking fans for attending the shows. It is to be seen if all these things will lead to a full-blown babyface turn soon and how the fans perceive it. Roman Reigns will team up with the Usos to take on the trio of Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton, and Riddle at WWE WrestleMania Backlash this weekend. He is then expected to continue his feud with Drew McIntyre, leading to a title match on a bigger stage. The Miz on facing The Rock. The Miz has opened up about sharing the ring with former WWE champion The Rock, describing it as an incredible moment. At Survivor Series 2011, the A-lister teamed up with R-Truth to take on John Cena and The Great One in a tag team match. This was The Rock's first match back in WWE in almost a decade. He and Cena emerged victorious, and they collided in the main event of 2 consecutive WrestleManias. During his appearance on Out of Character with Ryan Satin, The Miz was asked what was the most memorable time he's been hit by another wrestler's finishing move. He responded with, taking The Rock's people's elbow at Survivor Series when he hasn't come back to wrestle in like 8 years. I mean, being able to be in that first match, to be able to go up against Cena and Rock's first ever match back to be able to take the people's elbow was incredible. Because, I remember being on the real world going home and being like, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? Looking on the shelf and there's a Rock action figure and saying, I want to be a WWE superstar, and there I am, like 15 years later in the middle of the ring in Rock's first match back in 8 years. The Rock's last WWE appearance came in 2019. However, reports have speculated that he could make another in-ring return to take on Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 39. This is a dream match that many fans would love to see. At WrestleMania 38, the A-lister teamed up with social media megastar Logan Paul to take on Dominic and Rey Mysterio in a tag team match. The Maverick put on a good performance, and he did a phenomenal job as a heel. During the same interview, The Miz praised Logan Paul's work as a heel, stating, anyone that can go into the ring and be more hated than me, I applaud you, because that's very difficult to do. I have a punchable face. I know I have a punchable face, and I have used it for 20 years in WWE and will continue to do so. But he walks into a ring and it is just, even in Cleveland. I was like, we're in our hometown. You don't get booed in your hometown. We do, said The Miz. The 2 stars won the match, and in the aftermath, The Miz solidified himself as a heel by turning on his partner. Only time will tell if fans will ever see Logan Paul in WWE again to settle the score against the A-lister. The Rock in AEW. WWE Hall of Famer Bully Ray has high hopes for EW star MJF, who the former believes could become the next Rock on the microphone. During his run with WWE, The Rock was known for his incredible ability to weave compelling stories with the microphone in hand. The People's Champ's ability to invoke a reaction from the crowd made him one of the best superstars in the company's history. On a recent Busted Open show, the panelists, which included Mark Henry, Bully Ray, and Tommy Dreamer, revealed the current pro wrestlers they'd choose if they were to build a pro wrestling promotion. In the young wrestler category, Bully Ray chose AEW star MJF, who he thinks has the potential to be as big as The Rock on the microphone. I was going back and forth between 2, Hook was one of them. I don't know if you guys are really going to consider this a sleeper pick, but I'm going with him. It's MJF. Is MJF really considered a sleeper pick? I don't know, but he's a younger talent. When you say sleeper, I equate it to younger. So I was like Hook, Austin Theory, MJF. MJF is the guy for me. He's a younger talent, who, we all know, the sky is the absolute limit. Who knows what MJF? Bully Ray continued, if anybody could ever challenge what The Rock was able to accomplish on the microphone, I think it's MJF. I think given time, seasoning, the right people to stand across from him, the right people to tighten his screws, MJF could become the next Rock on the microphone. Meanwhile, Mark Henry chose AEW star Wardlow as his sleeper pick, while Tommy Dreamer chose Impact Wrestling's Ace Austin as the one to look out for in the future. Not only Bully Ray, but the similarities between the 2 stars didn't go unnoticed in another legend's eyes. Chris Jericho, who had a lengthy feud with MJF, felt that his storyline with the young star was similar to when he was in a rivalry with The Rock in WWE. MJF is bringing out a different side in me, but I think it's working both ways. Once again, it reminds me a lot of when I was working with The Rock. It was very hard to combat him on the microphone because he was that good, said Jericho. That's high praise for a pro wrestler who is just 26 years of age and has been on a major television program for just a few years. There's also a possibility of MJF walking in The Rock's footsteps and moving to WWE once his AEW contract expires. The Pinnacle leader himself has referenced the possibility many times. However, only time will tell if the salt of the earth strikes a deal with Vince McMahon.